Hello students, let us have the continuity of the previous class. As we have discussed the basics of C programming, now we are going to see about the data types of C. So the previous example I have shown a variable called as number along with the data type integer. So what is meant by a variable? When we go for a variable, it is an associated data type. It specifies how the data should be and what type of data should be present. And also the variable will be like, it can hold the variables like integer, character, float, etc. So this integer, character, float stands for the data types. So each data type have different amounts of memory. For example, the integer will occupy 4 bytes, where the float occupies 2 bytes, where the character occupies 1 byte. Depending upon the type of data type, the operations performed over the data type will be more efficient. The data type is also called as a collection of data with values having the meanings as well as the characteristics of the data. For example, if I am storing a value like 53, it will be stored in a data type called as integer. If I store a value called as 6.2, it will be stored in a data type called as float. So depending upon the characteristics of a data, the data type differs. A same example program. Now look at here, the data type used is integer and the variable is number. Since we are using integer, the control string will be %t. If I use float, the control string will be %f. So the value will be derived only as an integer. Even though if I get a value of float, it will be automatically implicitly converted to integer. So these are the basic types of data types, like it have primitive data types, user defined data types and derived data types. So primitive data types are the most basic type of data types, that is for representing the values. The examples are which we seen earlier like integer, float, double, characters. All these stands under primitive data types. Whereas if we go for user defined data types, the user defined data types will be derived from the user. The user will specifically define their own data type, is called as user defined data types. The examples are arrays, structures, etc. The derived data types are that it is derived from the basic data types called as primitive data types. So the examples which I have shown for all the three data types, if we go for primitive or primary, the data types are integer, character, float, double and even void. If we go for user defined data type, it will be class, structure, union, enumerated data type, type definition. If we go for derived data type, it will be function, array, pointer, references. So the integer data type. So the integer data type is divided into 4 types, namely unsigned integer data type, short integer data type, long integer data type, unsigned short integer data type. When we go for unsigned integer data type, it is used to store the values from the 0 value to the positive numbers, but it does not store the negative number. That we have to register that negative values will not be stored in the unsigned integer. When we go for short integer, it will store the value from minus 32,768 to positive 32,767. So it means that it shows positive values and also negative values. When we go for long integer, the largest version of integer type is this long integer. It can store any greater values above exceeding the 32,000 also. When we go for unsigned short integer, it is similar to short integer but with the limitations as unsigned type with integer. So character data types. So character may be a single data type. It can store only 1 byte, whereas integer stores 2 bytes of memory. So the character is that each and every character is accounted. The characters may be from the alphabets of A to Z or from the numbers. If you take the characters range, that is the number of characters in a particular C value is minus 128 to plus 127, or else you can take the characters from 0 to 255. Both the conditions apply in this character data type. When we use the control string for character data type will be percentage %C. Floating data type. So the floating data type is used for floating values. For example, 6.2, 7.2, all the point values will be stored in the floating data type. So the range will be from 1.2e to 38 and also 3.4e to 38. And the control string or the specific format will be %F. Double data type, which is the longest data type in a C programming language. When we go for double data type, we can store the decimal numbers with floating values. So the double data type will shows the precision data that is capable of storing the decimal points along with the floating values. So the range will be from 0.17 to 308 and 1.72 plus 308. And the control string will be %LF. Thank you all for listening the data types.